East Hampton, we are live.
Great. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. Before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge some folks that are here, our County Legislator, Ann Welker, my colleagues on the Town Board, Deputy Supervisor Kate Rogers, and Councilmember Tom Flight. We have our Chief of Police, Michael Sarlo, and Lieutenant Alversa here, and our Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, Bruce Bates. East Hampton is especially vulnerable to natural hazards like storms, wildfire, and coastal flooding, and those threats are increasing with climate change. The goal tonight is to make sure every resident knows how to prepare, where to go, and who to turn to when emergencies happen. You'll hear tonight directly from Suffolk County FRES, the American Red Cross, and our local emergency personnel about the systems in place and the steps that you can take. We're grateful to have you here, and it's through preparation and connection that we can keep our community safe. So now I'm going to turn it over to Allison, and if you'd like to just introduce your team, and then when you say the word, and we'll put the presentation up.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Town Supervisor, for having us. My name is Allison Avioli. I am the Acting Director of Emergency Preparedness for Suffolk County Fire Rescue and Emergency Services. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Emergency preparedness is key. It really does start with you, and it starts with you at home, and it starts with presentations like this. Our Office of Emergency Management goes all throughout the county trying to educate residents on how to be prepared, stay informed, and know your zone. I want to take a moment and introduce Commissioner Rudy Sunderman. He's our Commissioner of Suffolk County Fire Rescue and Emergency Services, and Doug Shira. He's from our Office of Emergency Management, and he will be giving the presentation today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Doug, and we can get started.
Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate being here. It's wonderful to be here in the town of East Hampton. Thank you very much, Supervisor, and thank you to the town emergency coordinator, Bruce Bates, for having us here and providing this opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name, again, is Doug Shearer, and I have about 40 years of emergency management experience. Before taking this position with the county. Before that, I did emergency management with, I'll go back far, don't hold this against me, starting with Lilco, going back to the days of Lilco, and I went through every alphabet combination that we currently have, all the way up to PSC and G. So, and then I left them, I left actually National Grid right before Sandy. And then during Sandy, they asked me to come back and help out, which I gleefully did. And that was an experience in itself. It shows the power of what a storm can do when you live along the coast. My current title is Community Emergency Evacuation Coordinator. That is a mouthful. Okay. We'll get these going.
There.
Next one. Thank you. Okay. The goals for this presentation. Really what I'd like to make sure is that when we leave this presentation or when we show it again, I hope that you have a better understanding and a level of awareness of summer weather. Summer weather brings with us a lot of different things that can cause a lot of problems, and how you can protect yourself from those and your loved ones. So the goals are who we are at the county. You may not know who we are. We're in Yaphank. That's far away from here. What is Fire Rescue Emergency Services, and what is the division of us, which we are called Office of Emergency Management? Who are we? What do we do? I want to give you that increased extreme weather awareness and how you should prepare, how you should respond, and how you should stay informed. Those are the key things that we want to roll out tonight. What do we do in the county the county Office of Emergency Management? We coordinate the county's response to natural and man-made disasters. Such as, what's the man-made disaster that the county went through? EIT, that's right. And there are others, but That's one of the most recent ones that we went through. And of course, natural disasters not only include the weather, but it also includes COVID, natural occurrence things. OEM personnel are responsible for developing the comprehensive all hazards emergency management plan. That is a big deal. It's a thick document. It's not only from the county perspective, but it's also from the local jurisdictions. We'll get into how that all works together. And we also staff the Emergency Operations Center in Yaphank. It is where it's the central hub for coordinating and communicating when we activate for something that's ugly, as I call it. We operate out of there. And also we coordinate in that location, and we do it on a day-to-day basis with local, state, and federal officials in all aspects of emergency planning, response, and recovery activities. This is the phases of emergency management that we put into place in the office. Starts off with mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. What I'd like to bring forward with this slide really is, more importantly, is that OEM are responsible for, like I said, the comprehensive all hazard emergency management plan. And that's the heart of our operation. But what I also want to say is, when we talk about mitigation, we talk about public education. We do that just like we're doing it here. That's part of the mitigation things that we're responsible for doing. Identifying hazards, vulnerabilities, and we work on improving infrastructure. But what I want you to take away from this is I want you to do the same thing that we do in the office. We want you to think about mitigation. What can you do to identify the hazards and vulnerabilities around your house? Do you live in a flooding area? The trees around your house, are those things going to cause a problem? The drains coming out of your into your storm drains, are they clear? So you make sure you walk around your house and you can mitigate the impact of a storm. When we talk about preparedness, from our perspective at the county, we write and update emergency response plans. That's a fun job. There's a lot of emergency response plans that we get into, and we provide that by doing training and exercises. Actually, tomorrow, we're running a workshop in our office for county employees. So that's part of it. But what you can do in doing preparedness for the individual is develop plans for your family and for your individuals. Response. We get into response. We work with other emergency and support agencies in response to natural or man-made incidents. What you can do as an individual, as a family, you can educate yourself on what you need to do for various incidences, such as evacuation, what do you do if there's a long-term power outage, and things of that nature. So how do you respond to an incident that's potentially going to affect you? And the last one, recovery. Recovery is restoring the community to normal operations. We hear that term, build back better. We've all heard that, right? That's what we try to do when we do recovery. When we're in the middle of an emergency response, the first thing after making sure that everybody's safe and all that, we start thinking about recovery. It's a cycle that we go through. What I want you to think about as an individual when we talk about recovery is clearing debris from your property. That's recovery. Talking to your insurance company. That's recovery. Talking to your neighbors. That's recovery. See if they need help. That's recovery. So that's what we want you to do with the 4 phases of emergency management. We do it as a county. We want you to do it as individuals. What we face, and I put quotes around what we face, it's not just what we face as county employees and preparing for things. It's what you as a community face. Natural hazards, hurricanes, coastal storms, nor'easters, extreme heat, wildfires, brush fires. Notice I'm only focusing in on the summer threats. During this wintertime, we have a different level of threats. And I'd be more than happy to come back here in this beautiful place and talk about the wintertime threats. So invite me back. We also have technological hazards, hazardous material incidents, utility failures. I think there was one where we had a couple of weeks ago on the North Shore, right? Somebody hit a pole and whoop, it came all the way around here because of the way they had it arranged, the way the system was set up. So we had that type of situation. We have transportation accidents, rail, air, cybersecurity threats. Then we start taking a look at the public and human-caused hazards, what we face. pandemics, infectious diseases, and acts of violence or terrorism. So that's what we look at. That's our universe for the summertime, what we face together, not only at the county, but also individuals. What we do, our emergency management operations revolve around maintaining 24/7 situational awareness. We maintain situational awareness 24 hours a day. We come into the office, the first thing we do is we look at the weather. Actually, I'm looking at the weather at 5 o'clock in the morning. But we look at the weather 24 hours a day in addition to many different things, the transportation infrastructure. When you go into the operations center at the county, we have these big, huge monitors, and you'll see them in a picture later on, and each of them have posted different information. I put it on the devices in the morning, and I walk around and I take a good situational awareness as what's going on in the county. In the event of an evacuation, we work with the state, with the American Red Cross to open and operate shelters, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. One of the things we also do is I'm not going to go through each one of these, but what we do is we deploy emergency assets and supplies. We maintain a stockpile of emergency assets, from cots to water to generators, sandbags. We also have facilities such as mobile command center that we can deploy to specific locations. We also have protective barriers for vehicle impacts, because that's a big thing in the news. You see that about vehicles driving through to get into crowds. We have vehicle barriers that we deploy. And of course, everybody has a drone team. We have a dynamite drone team, a really good group of people that operate our drones for us. And also we have medical tents. So we have a whole host of emergency assets and supplies. Finally, we prioritize and share information with leadership and partners during events and also during the daytime. If something happens, the weather's going sour, we communicate that. So that's what we do at the county to maintain this situational awareness on a day-to-day basis. And we also do that throughout the incident. Next one. Emergency Operations Center, which I'm very, very proud of.
Home away from home.
Our home away from home, yes. And as you can see, we have the large monitors along the wall there. And not only do we have an emergency operations center, but adjacent to that, right next door, we have a situation room that has 3 large monitors, so we can have separate meetings to discuss the emergency situation. We have slots in there, workstations, for 48 individuals. They come from various levels of government, state, local, federal government may be represented, depends on the emergency. Like, for instance, if we have a snowstorm and we're forecasted to get 6 or 7 inches of snow, we'll activate in there, but we'll have, Allison and I will be there. We'll have the DPW folks. We'll have New York State DOT. We'll have our EMS folks there for ambulance runs and talking to the hospitals. So we'll have a small group, but when it gets bad outside, then we may have to scale up to having those 48 stations activated. So when you're aware of something that's bad that's coming our way, you can guarantee that facility in Yaphank is activated, and a lot of folks are being represented there. We gather information on what has happened, what is happening, and what might happen. That's a key thing, what might happen. And we're always thinking ahead at the county when it comes to that. This facility enables the efficient sharing of information. It provides a single point for decision-making and determining a multi-agency course of action. We do not do anything independent. We work together. It says Emergency Operations Center, but I look at it as an Emergency Coordination Center. That is a coordination center. Now, yes, the county has its own assets. And when it comes to damage and impact on county assets, we take control. We operate those facilities. When it comes to the town of East Hampton, we work with the town emergency management folks and the government staff here, and we coordinate needs, unmet needs with the towns. And we do that across with the 10 towns that we have. This facility enables efficient sharing of information, and we create a lot of messaging out of this facility. We have a public information officer, because the most important thing is unity of message during an event. We don't want to be talking from 3 or 4 different sheets of music. We want to be all on the same sheet of music, because we want to tell the public, you folks on this is the situation. We all want to be playing from that same sheet of music. We also provide a single point of contact to identify, acquire, procure, allocate, and deploy resources. So let's say the town of East Hampton needs something. We get a call or we get a resource request from the town, and we look at our inventory. We can't support that. Who do we go to? We go to the state. We ask the state for help. We also may ask the counterparts, agencies on Long Island, to see if they have it. But we also go to the state, and we're all playing in the same sandbox. They're sitting right next to us in the Emergency Operations Center. So this is a great place that we have. Next slide. Okay. State of emergency. I just want to talk briefly about the state of emergency because it's important that we all know how a state of emergency is declared. We live in what's called a home rule state. And according to Article 2B of the state administrative law, a state of emergency can be declared by your elected official. It could be the village mayor, it could be the town supervisor, it could be the county executive. All emergencies start at home. In other states, it's the governor. The governor runs everything. Here in New York State, the village mayor or the town supervisor can declare an emergency separate and apart from anybody above because they feel that the incident is going to affect the public safety and they need to render all available assistance vital to the security and well-being and health of the citizens of their community because they voted for them. A local state of emergency allows the implementation of appropriate actions to protect life and property, public infrastructure, and to perform other such emergency assistance to coordinate responses. So it starts at the locality. It's not a county, it's not a state, it's a local incident, right? Chain of command, again, it's the same thing. It boils up from the village, the town, the county, and state, and the federal level. And this is how resource requests occur too. The same way. I don't have it, I have an unmet need, can you help me? And we go up the chain of command. There's protocols and procedures in place to affect this, to implement it, but this is how the chain of command works. And we partner at the top with FEMA. So if we had something really bad before the incident, if we had a hurricane come up the coast, FEMA would be with us in Yaphank, coordinating federal assets to assist us in Suffolk County. So it's a very well-run machine. How we respond. If an evacuation order occurs, what you need to know, how are you going to be told? Well, the big thing here is you're going to be told through emergency alerts via TV, radio, social media, Smart 911, and Suffolk Alert notifications. That's the key thing we're going to talk about is this Smart 911 Suffolk Alert. We want everyone in the county to be signed on for Suffolk Alert Smart 911. It's a notification system that the county has available for free so that if something happens and we need to reach out to you, we have that. Now, we're not the only group, the only organization, the only government organization that needs you to sign up for something, but the National Weather Service, they can trigger, if we had a line of thunderstorms coming close to us, they trigger their notification system. And maybe you've had it where your cell phone goes off and makes beeps or whatever and says, warning, a severe thunderstorm is coming, take shelter. So that's another mechanism. But we at the county want you to sign on for Suffolk Alert and Smart 911. The other thing we want you to make sure that you know if we declare an evacuation order is we want you to know your transportation options. We want you to know the Long Island Railroad, buses, ferries. There's a lot of people in this community that come out here on the railroad, most importantly. So know your transportation options and know where to go. First, stay with friends or family outside the evacuation zone, or as we'll show you later, the storm surge zone, outside the storm surge zone. Find some friends and family outside that. The next thing, if that's not possible, travel out of town, okay? Leave early. Last resort, which you really don't want to do, is general population shelter. I'm going to talk about shelters in a little bit. We have 3 main shelters in Suffolk County with secondary shelters also that the Red Cross helps us with. But the bottom line is The theme is plan early, plan now. You act early and you get out of your zone and go to a safe location. That's the most important thing, is to get to your safe location early. Plan ahead and don't wait. You got to do it now. Because let me tell you, storm season comes very quickly and recommendations are made to evacuate. Sheltering. Congregate style sheltering in large open spaces such as gyms. I'm giving you a little hint of where we have those shelters with a gym, staffed by the American Red Cross, the Civilian Emergency Response Team, Medical Reserve Corps. We have 3 main locations. Closest to you is Riverhead, Eastern Campus. We have Selden Campus, and we have the Brentwood Campus. Additionally, shelters may open in school buildings in the non-flood zones if required. And the Red Cross has done that in the past. They will continue to do that again. But for them to do that, they have to bring in additional assets to help us with that. But if something, again, was coming our way, they would mobilize national assets, which are within a few hours travel time. They will get here to assist us. The Red Cross also provides food, water, blankets, and cots. And for those with minimal care, they need to bring their medications and essential items. And when I say minimal care, this is a public shelter. So people that do have some medical needs can go there. But if you are on a medical supporting device for your health, you have to go to a healthcare facility for that. Somebody that has minimal care can go to a public shelter. So I just want to be very clear with that. The other important thing is you need to make sure that you wait for the announcement identifying which shelters are open. On our website, we have a display of all the shelters in Suffolk County, but they're not open. So when we declare an emergency and we open those shelters, all the ones that are going to disappear. The only ones that are going to be on that website are the ones that are open. And they may not be the ones that you were looking at saying, oh, that's close to my house, I can use that one. Maybe not. So just be careful. We want to wait for that announcement. Sheltering. Pet-friendly shelters. They're operated in partnership with Suffolk County SPCA. Again, they're at Brentwood, Selden, Riverhead. And the reason why we do that is it makes it easy. You go to those locations, you bring your dog, your cat, or your bird. That's all that we want. And we make sure that the SPCA separates the cats and the birds, because we want to make sure that happens, right? You know, it could be a lot of fur and a lot of feathers. Yeah. Again, it's staffed by those volunteers. When you bring your pet, and we're gonna have a slide about pets in a little bit, cage, leash, a leash, food, a dish, some medications if your pet's on medications, vaccine records, and things of that nature. All right. So now we're going to talk about historical weather events. Some of these you may remember. Some of them may not have experienced because you're not in that area. If you look at Oakdale in November and Mastic in November of 2021, that was a really interesting November, right? Somebody in the back is shaking their head. Yeah, it was. It was really, it was crazy. We had a lot of tornadoes that year. And I'm talking about what's called EF0 and EF1 tornadoes. They're not like the 4s and 5s you see in the Midwest, okay? We don't get that kind of tornado. But we have gotten an EF2, which is some significant winds. They come down, they run, and then they lift, and then they drop again. So I've been to a few of them in my past experience as a utility employee. One was up in Springs. We had one in Springs, and a few others that have occurred during my lifetime. Between 1979 and 2020, 30 tornadoes have struck Suffolk County. You don't really think about that, all right? Tornadoes are typically no notice or very short notice events. Your cell phone's going to go off. If you sign up for Suffolk Alert, you're going to get a notification from us, all right? It's very, very short notice. When that happens, we want you to seek a sturdy shelter in the basement or the interior of a room away from the windows on the lowest floor and cover your head and crouch down. I see somewhat of my age group in this group here. We used to do those drills in school where you'd bend down near the wall. That's what we want you to do. If there's a tornado warning in your area, get close to where the wall and the floor meets and hunker down there, because that's a strong structure within your house. Crouch down. It's very important. And remember, every tornado warning can be seen as a life-threatening event. All right? All it takes is one tree limb to go through a window in the house, and you're standing there and you catch that tree limb. So make sure you know that every tornado event that you're subjected to, see it as life-threatening. Another one is flooding. We'll go to the next slide. You may not have been subjected to this because you don't, or you may have property in that area in Smithtown and in Rocky Point. They had 8 to 10 inches of water in such a short period of time at night. That picture on the left, people that had to be evacuated from their home, they had to be rescued in Rocky Point. Who would have thought that? But when these warnings go out about heavy rains, we have to pay particular attention to water rise was very, very fast, very quick. And that little graphic on the left from our friends at the National Weather Service, that white area is where they got the 8 to 10 inches of rain. And that's a pretty big spot. That's a pretty big area. And that was in August of last year. We went to all those houses, right?
Door to door.
Door to door.
It's a part of our recovery process. So we'll go out there, we'll assess the damage, and we work with the local National Weather Service to see what exactly occurred out there. And like Doug said, it was an 8 to 9 inches in a short period of time, and it happened overnight. Our office got called out, I think about 2, 3 in the morning to go out there and see what damage had occurred. We had 2 dams break that night, one in Stony Brook and one in Blydenburg Dam. And we also had a sinkhole out in Comac. So being that it was on the North Shore, primarily they don't get to see something like that. So it was a very extreme case when it came to flooding, and our office has been working ever since to get reimbursement for those damages.
Some of you may have seen in the paper about, what is it, the Smithtown Library?
Yes.
Smithtown Library had, I don't know, 10 feet of water in their basement, and they had all their historical records down there. So they from the 1600s.
Yes.
So that was very interesting on that. The next slide, and flooding can happen anywhere. So it just happened to be in that area. That's where the center of the storm was. Thunderstorms. Thunderstorms are very interesting. They produce damaging winds and hail. Now the hail sometimes is localized. I'll tell you, a number of years ago, I went to a repair store. First time I went to this repair store after a day of storms. And I go into the garage there at the repair store, and for my car, and the car next to me, it looked like a golf ball from the hail hitting the car. And that's a total write-off. And it was quite an expensive vehicle too, I might add. But when we get these thunderstorms, take shelter in a sturdy structure, like I said before, basement or cell, a cellar would be best. Being in the vehicle is safer than being outside. And one of the things that I really want to say about thunderstorms, if you get a thunderstorm warning, I don't know why people go outside during storms. I can't figure it out. When you get a thunderstorm with that kind of wind, you can't hear things. It overwhelms your senses. It overwhelms your eyes. It overwhelms your hearing. You can't hear things. So if there's a tree limb that snaps, you can't see it. You can't hear it. So make sure when you hear that there's a severe thunderstorm warning in your area, stay indoors, because let me tell you, hail comes out of nowhere. Last year during one of the thunderstorms we had on the island, we had 1.5 inches hail in Manorville. It was just a very small tract of that kind of thing. I sent pictures to the National Weather Service. They appreciate when I do that, and they post it on their webpage. But you don't want to be in that kind of situation. The next one is extreme heat. Now, I know when I'm on phone calls with the heat calls, and I'm talking to Bruce here, he goes, we're okay out here. We get that sea breeze in the afternoon and everything. But you got to understand, I look at it from an island perspective. When we talk about extreme heat, we're looking at Huntington, which could be 15 degrees warmer, to you guys here with a sea breeze in the afternoon, and it's 80 degrees, right? And people are at the beach. But the key thing here is extreme heat and humidity does take a toll on the body. Knowing the signs of heat illnesses, you need to understand that, and drink plenty of fluids. Reschedule outdoor activities, work and strenuous activities until the cool time of the day. Also, seek shelter out of the sun. We have a partnership with the libraries. The libraries, Montauk Library, Amagansett, East Hampton, John Germain, and East Hampton Library, they turn into cooling spaces. Now, you can go there any time of the year. They always welcome you, which is nice. But when it gets really bad, we make a notification and we call them cooling spaces. So we go there. During the wintertime, because you're going to ask me back for the wintertime to make a presentation, we call them warming spaces. All right. So it's really good that that we use those facilities, and they're more than happy to have us go there. The other thing is, the biggest thing is, the bottom one: never leave children or disabled adults or pets in vehicles. As recent as last week, somebody did that in the Midwest, left their kid in the car. Come on, how many times do we have to tell people this? But you know what? It does happen. So remember, if we're in a heat situation, even if it's 80 degrees outside, your car can get very hot. If you just run in to the store to get something and you have a kid in the car, it could be dangerous, very, very dangerous. Wildfires. Well, now we've had a few of those. The Maniville wildfire, we've had one in 1995. I lived through that. As a utility person, I helped out with logistics. We had the 2012 Maniville wildfire, and most recent we had the West Hampton Pine Fire, which was recent to us. We make notifications on evacuations for that, which is a key thing. So if we make an evacuation because the team that's responding to that
There's a life safety
thinks there's a
issue.
life safety issue. And the thing with wildfires is, when we as a county go to a wildfire, we're in support of the incident commander, which is the fire chief. The fire chief runs the show. He is the incident commander. We go there in support. So if he needs extra help, if he needs extra fire companies, which he's already asked for, but we can augment anything that he needs, because he may have some unmet needs. So we're in the middle. You have the fire chief running the show at the bottom. You have us in the middle, and then we talk up. We talk to the state. We talk to a lot of different folks above. We talk to the media. We coordinate media messaging. We take those responsibilities or those activities off of the fire chief, the incident commander, so he can fight the fire. So we're there to help out. We're there not to take over or anything like that. We're there to provide assistance in the field, especially to these the West Hampton Pines fire. And you know what? Sometimes the minute we get there, like 2 or 3 hours later, it's over. 95 is a little different. We're a little bit more savvy today when we respond to these things. We coordinate better. We're trained better for these types of things. So when it comes to wildfires, well, we're pretty Johnny on the spot with that. Next, hurricane and nor'easters. Again, 2021 was a very busy year. We had Tropical Storm Henri. We had Tropical Depression Ida. We had nor'easters. It was a very busy year. We had coastal storms in 22 and 23. We had Hurricane Lee not hit us, but influence our area in September of 23. We had coastal storms in January of 24. So hurricanes and nor'easters makes things very, very busy here on Long Island. You can see in Montauk on the slide, on the image on the right, that was there because of protective measure to mitigate further impacts of nor'easters. In Miller Place, they had a bluff slide, right? Who would have thought that on the North Shore? But you had that because of the nor'easters. So very, very busy that 21 years. But since then, we've had issues all along the coast, all along the ocean-facing coast, that has required us to put protective measures and mitigation events. Tropical storms and hurricanes. This is a quiz question for the audience here.
Later.
Yeah, no, I got this one here, right?
Yeah.
Which is generally considered more dangerous, a slow or a fast-moving hurricane? Slow, yeah. Slow-moving hurricanes are generally considered more dangerous than fast-moving ones due to their long duration. Sandy was not a hurricane for us, but it was a slow-moving storm, and it pushed all that water to us. An area exposed to strong winds, heavy rains for a more extended period of time lead to an increased damage to structures, infrastructure. Slow-moving storms allow for more water to accumulate, increase the risk of severe flooding, and can contribute to larger and more damaging storm surges as the ocean is pushed, as the prolonged exposure allows. Allison and I had the pleasure of going to the National Hurricane Center in February. Hurricane School.
Yeah, so Doug and I had the opportunity to go down to Florida, and where we learned all about how hurricanes form and how we can better read weather reports to understand what is going on. So down there, beginning June 1st, they start operating in 12-hour shifts. So there's people working around the clock, handwriting reports, reevaluating them constantly every 12 hours to see what's going on. And it's pretty amazing to see down there. We also had the opportunity to meet one of the hurricane hunters. So a lot of these storms, hurricanes begin to form off the coast of Africa. And once the Hurricane Center sees that it begins to form and creates that eye of the storm, they'll send a plane up there to see what exactly is going on. Is it going to continue to get stronger? Is it going to continue to get bigger? And Doug and myself and the other staff downstairs in the Office of Emergency Management, we talk to them and we say, hey, what is going on? What do you think is going to happen? And when should we start preparing? Doug puts together a 120-hour timeline. And that's when we begin our steps, our checklist to go through to make sure we're hitting all the key points to stay prepared and stay informed ahead of these storms. So it was a very exciting time down there that we had. Yeah. Couldn't leave him down there.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the folks that we were talking to there are the folks that we're going to talk to when we have what's called a hurricane liaison team call. When something's coming, we get on a phone call with these folks and we can ask them questions directly. So it's very interesting that now they have a voice in the face that they can remember.
Yes.
So hurricanes on Long Island. When was the last hurricane to hit Long Island? Hit Long Island.
1938.
No, okay, but at least that was a hurricane. Hurricane Gloria. Gloria was the last hurricane to hit Long Island, which is interesting. And hitting Long Island means the eye has to be within 50 miles. Within 50 miles. Gloria made landfall near Babylon. It was a dying Category 1. But it was pretty significant, the impact. I was with that Lilco back then, and it was a long restoration for me. I went out with foreign crews and did our thing. The 38 hurricane, according to the records, was the strongest one to make landfall on Long Island. That was a Category 3. We had some strong storms in the 50s. In the 50s and 60s, we had some significant activity during that period. Superstorm Sandy was not a hurricane. It made landfall approximately 100 miles away in southern New Jersey near Atlantic City, as we know. Somebody mentioned Bob. Hurricane Bob, yes. Hurricane Bob was a Category 2 in 1991. In August of 91, the eye wall was 60 miles from Montauk. And that was pretty severe. I don't know if you remember going through Hurricane Bob. We had 400,000 people out from Hurricane Bob. That was a fun week and a half of restoration. But when you look at Sandy, which was not a direct impact, it caused nearly 21,000 structures flooded. The damage or destroyed 8,000 structures were damaged with over 50% of their value. That's significant. Over 1 million cubic yards of debris not from a hurricane. So that just gives you some idea. When you hear a hurricane is coming, there's going to be something. What I call Superstorm Sandy and Bob and all of those other ones are storms of influence. They're influencers. They're in our area. They tell us what's going, all this kind of stuff, but they're influencers. This is what the National Hurricane Center and NOAA is telling us this year. From June 1st to November 30th, that's our standard hurricane season. They're expecting the peak, obviously, is mid to late August through October. They're looking at a 60% chance for this season of being above normal. That's pretty significant. We're looking at 13 named storms. Tropical storms get names, right? So you get a name and then it may go into a hurricane, but they're looking at 13 to 19 of them and 6 to 10 hurricanes and 3 to 5 major hurricanes. 3 to 5 major hurricanes. A major hurricane is a Category 3 or higher, right? Category 3 or higher. We do here on Long Island have the capability for a Category 3. And Category 3 are sustained winds. That's not the gusts, which are even more significant. So I don't want to be here when that happens. But they're saying we have a 60% chance of being above normal, all right? Just a little quick thing, Superstorm Sandy. Again, like I said, Superstorm Sandy was an influencer. It didn't directly impact us, but it did cause significant impacts, as you saw before. Now, National Weather Service, you will be quizzed on this later on. What is the difference between a watch and a warning? It's almost like ready, set, go. Ready. When you hear there's an outlook, sometimes you see on TV or you read on online that there's a 7-day outlook of severe weather coming. That's an outlook, and they want you to give that a time to get ready. Start thinking about it. Then if there's a watch issued, they want you to be set. Have your plan of action ready. Make sure you're ready to go, because when we have a watch, they're issued usually in 48 hours in advance, and their confidence level, because we always say, hey, I'd like to be a weatherman because you know the forecast is wrong. They give it a forecast confidence of 50%. So when they give you a watch, get ready. And then we have these warnings and advisories. Advisories are for things that are weather that is imminent or occurring. And with an advisory, it's a little less of a threat to life and safety. A warning definitely is a threat to life and safety. The weather is occurring, and the weather is definitely impacted for threats to people's lives. So when you see the outlook, watch, advisory, warning, ready, set, go. And these are the watches, advisories, and warnings. A lot of them repeat, like with severe thunderstorms, you have a watch and you have a warning, and it just gives you a list. And these are all the summertime ones. Now, I didn't put the winter ones in here. So you can see there's a lot of things that our friends over in Upton, which is where the National Weather Service is located. They do the forecast for 18 million people. We talk to them all the time. I just spoke to them today. They will be with us tomorrow at our workshop tomorrow. And as you can see, we have on the bottom of the right-hand side under warnings, it says marine. There's a lot of marine warnings. I didn't want to go into those. So if you have a boat, you know all the marine advisories, gale force winds, and all of those other things. We can have flash flood watches. We have high surf advisories. For those of us that enjoy the beach, high surf advisory. The surf looks beautiful, but you know what? It's dangerous, all right? And then we have the coastal and the hurricanes and all that. So when it comes to severe weather, again, we have the outlooks, the watches, the warnings, and the advisories. Services we provide. This is the next one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Want to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are some of our county resources, and Doug mentioned this earlier. So our Suffolk Alert System, Smart 911, it's a free resource that we have to give out to you in the county. You can make a Smart 911 profile, put in all your information in there, and we'll get to it in a little bit. It's coming up in the slideshow, and it just helps us better inform you and have you better inform us of what's going on. We also have our shelter evacuation center mapping. We're gonna have a snippet of that. You can enter in your address and see your closest shelter or evacuation center. As Doug mentioned, right now on the website, all of them are opened. However, when we go to actually utilize them in the event of an emergency, we will only be displaying the actual ones that you can go to. And those are those 3 main campuses and or some of the local schools in the area, depending on the emergency. Some other things we have is surge zone mapping. So our countdown to readiness is to be informed, be prepared, and know your zone. So like the evacuation map and the shelter map, you can enter in your address and see what storm surge zone you live in. Suffolk County has 4 of them. So it's A, B, C, and D, primarily along the South Shore, but there are some in various other areas around. So you enter in your address and they will pop up. And then Smart 911, as we mentioned earlier. Next slide. So our emergency shelter and evacuation center tool. So you can determine if an evacuation has been called for your area. So Doug mentioned earlier, if we are going to do this, we're going to utilize all sources of information get out to you. We'll do press releases, we'll contact the local TV, radio, we'll do social media, anything and everything we can to get the information out to you about what's occurring, we will do that.
The other quick thing is that what we're going to do is we're going to be on the conversation call with your folks and the town folks also. So they're also going to make announcements to you all. All right. Again, it's a common message. We want to have that common message so that when we talk about it at the county, it's the same message that the town's giving out. So we're all going to be coordinating that message about what shelters are open, what's being evacuated, and so on.
Yeah. And what's neat about the tool is, and this is something Doug and staff have put together, is that you can find the nearest open shelter and it'll also give you the directions to it. So it'll show you how many turns you need to make to get there. And it'll show you maybe another one after that, that might be the nearest shelter to your area. So you can see here we have a snippet of Out East. Those on the right-hand side is the legend. It'll show you if it's a pet friendly, if it's open, near capacity, or completely closed. And on the left side, you can see you can enter in your address and it'll pop up with those nearest shelters for you.
Just to give you some idea for a shelter, all right, that's where they have cots and all of that. In addition to the colleges, if we determine that we want to open one, it could be the Montauk Playhouse, which is what we call a tier 3, or the East Hampton High School, which is a tier 2. All right. So those are the two other places that the Red Cross has on their list. But the main ones, like I said, are at the college campuses. All right. Then we have evacuation centers. That's different from a shelter. A shelter has beds. An evacuation center could be like the Springs Public School, American Legion, Sag Harbor Elementary, and so on. Those are places that if there was a truck accident with a propane tank and it flipped over and we had to notify you to evacuate 2 miles around that lovely little truck, we would activate these facilities to say, go to the Sag Harbor Elementary School or go here. Those are places of refuge to stay. The threat goes away. You can go back home. Big difference. No shelters, no cots, no water or anything like that. Evacuation versus shelter. Just want to make sure you understand that. And that's all in the county map.
So next up, you have our Know Your Zone. So you can see the colors there. That light green is A, the blue is B, purple is C, and that orange is D. So similar to the evacuation and shelter tool, you can enter in your address and see where you may fall in those storm surge zones. So in the event that we may call for you to go to a sheltering because we see a storm surge levels might be becoming life-threatening, we would announce, hey, all those who are living in storm surge A, they need to go to a zone of safety, which is primarily right outside that storm surge zone, moving towards the middle, towards that spine of Long Island. So you can see they're just, while they are on those, the South Shore, they're all around. So you never really know until you put your address in there and see exactly where you may or may not fall.
And we communicate with the storm surge analysis team down in Florida. And they draw this out for us. They tell us, hand draw it. And they say, these are the areas that are going to get this amount of flooding. And it's above the ground. And these maps are done because it was done with a radar flyover to say how high the ground is. And then if the water is a certain height, then the recommendations are going to be made. All right. So these are the zones A, B, C, and D. D is worst case. C and D are typically at risk from major, those category 3 and higher. All right. Category storm has nothing to do with these zones, because if it's a slow moving category 1, we could be in zone B level. All right. So you got to listen for that messaging. Okay.
And then this is how you can prepare, right? The best thing that preparedness really does start with you and your family and your pets back at home. So having a family emergency plan, preparing before the storm. Doug talked earlier about how you can mitigate your home. So maybe cleaning out the gutters, moving some things inside. The biggest disaster that occurred from the August flooding event was everyone had all of their files, insurance documents in their basement. And their basement had anywhere from 8 to 10 feet of flooding. and they lost everything. So it's really, really important if you're in these zones, put them in a better space, bring them upstairs, fireproof safes. And it just goes beyond just your home into your vehicle. So we like to have an emergency kit for our cars, God forbid we get stranded outside, and for our homes, as well as our pets. So making sure you have a go bag for your pets, yourselves, your cars, it's all important. Next slide. So the family emergency plan, how will I receive emergency alerts and warnings? So we talk a lot about Suffolk alerts and Smart 911. You can also have state alerts if you should need them. And the weather alerts go directly to our phones. What's your shelter plan, right? We spoke about how to find your shelter in your evacuation center, entering your address. What is your evacuation route? So it's not important just to know how to get out of your home, but how to get out of your neighborhood. Right. So I think Hurricane Sandy, and by my house, I had 2 trees fall down on either side. I couldn't get out at all. So it's important to know if I had to get out, where else I could go, where other alternate means are. What is your family and household communication plan? Right? We always talk about having an out-of-town contact if you should need one, and making sure that everyone knows how to get in touch with you. I think we talk about now, I think the joke in the office is how many phone numbers can you remember, right? And how many phone numbers without going through your phone right now can you honestly remember at the top of your head? There's a lot, right? We're just so used to our phones. So making sure you have those important contacts written down. The most important would be your insurance policy as well, making sure you can get in contact with those should you need to begin to report your damage, especially after a house fire. Some other things is, do I need to update my emergency preparedness kit?
Question is, do you have an emergency?
Yes, that's most important. And if you have one, when was the last time you checked it? Because I know for us, get your batteries are corroding and all those things. So make sure to check it. Check it, when the spring comes around, you're checking your smoke alarms, check your emergency go kit and make sure everything is up to date in there. Next slide.
Very interesting for having a family emergency plan is making a meeting place outside your home. So like in some businesses, when they do a fire evacuation plan from the building, they say, we're going to meet down the street at the flagpole. You need to have that same kind of thought process for your family. One area near your home and one outside your neighborhood. So say we're going to meet at the mall or someplace that's outside your neighborhood. It may be easier on points of contact. It may be easier to make an out-of-state phone call. So you want to have a family contact outside the area, maybe somebody in Connecticut or somebody in Pennsylvania or somebody, in North Carolina that's outside the area that can coordinate notifications, because it may be easier to call outside depending upon how saturated the local network is. You may also want to think about your doctors and pharmacy points of contact, insurance agents and companies, and then as Allison was saying, family contact information, cell phones. You also may want to talk to your school, what kind of emergency plan the school has. And also remember, like Allison saying, everything's on our cell phone. Have that in your pocket. A piece of paper in your wallet that has some key important phone numbers in the event your cell phone goes bad all the time, that kind of thing. The other thing we want to consider is medical needs, including prescriptions and equipment. If there's someone in the house that has a disability or access and functional needs, including devices and equipment, we really need to plan for that. Do it now, not later. Oxygen. All of those things. If you have extra batteries for some medical device in the house, get those extra batteries. Don't wait till we lose the line from PSEG and we're going to be out for a week and a half. Yeah, it's nice to be on their restoration list, but they may not be able to do the restoration until a week later. And of course, we can't forget our pets or our service animals. On the household emergency supplies, this is a guideline. 3 days.
We have some handouts too.
We got handouts and things up here, pets emergency plans. We say 3-day supply of water and food and of situations like that. Some conversation points that people go to presentations, they say 7 days. Gauge it yourself. Minimum 3, nice plan is 7. But when you're looking at planning for water, it's 1 gallon per day per person. That's a lot of water in some houses per day, okay? 3 days food supply, first aid materials, flashlights, all of that's in this little emergency plan, emergency supply list. Cell phone chargers, if you have a solar charger, that's pretty cool. Can opener, we don't think of things, we have everything's electric. Your refrigerator, your garage door is electric probably, if you have one, and cash, basic stuff, basic toolkit, okay? Prepare your house and property before the storm. Clear the gutters, the downspouts, trim tree limbs that are close to the house. You see after every thunderstorm, windstorm on Long Island, there's this tree that's in the house. And they go, well, yeah, it's a dead tree. Well, if it was dead, why didn't you move it? Kind of thing. Clear the yard of loose objects. I live in a condominium development. We have furniture, grills, play sets outside, trash cans we don't have, but planters. Planters are great missiles, right? They fly, all right? So the thing is, when we have something bad coming, go outside. Limit your risk, limit the impact, mitigate the impact on your house, your property. And if you're so fortunate to have a boat, secure your boat, take it out of the water if you can. You see a lot of folks in Florida, they take their boats out of the water. Fill your gas tanks in your cars, fully charge your EV, fill and turn off the propane tank. The reason why I want you to turn it off is you make it safe. You make it safe when you turn it off, okay? But at least you have a full one. The Go Kit, okay, take inventory of personal items, take pictures of unique high-value items. You probably do that for your insurance anyway, but just to be on the safe side, make sure you take these pictures. Compile copies of insurance, recent photo identifications, birth and marriage certificates. That's if you want to still stay married after the event. Emergency contact lists, like I said, and for convenience, store a lot of this stuff on thumb drives.
So you can take it to go.
Take it to go. Take it to go. All right. Next slide, please. Assemble a Go Kit, a Go Bag. You can go to the next slide. This is a pretty little image in here, and the little cartoon photo really says everything. Non-perishable food, water, medications, flashlight, all of that stuff is in here. We want you to have a Go Bag. And it's not only for storms. On Long Island, we have house fires all the time. You may have to leave your house because of a house fire, and you may not be able to go back to that house. So here you are, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you got your pets next to you, and all you're in your pajamas. And that's all you have. You don't have your cell phone because you didn't grab it on the way outside the house because you're worried about the kids, the all that, and you're in the middle of the street. The Red Cross is there, they're gonna take you to a hotel. You can't get back to the house. The Go Bag, you have that right near the door. You grab it. Basic stuff. You don't have to have the full inventory for a hurricane coming through. Basic things so you can recover some of the items, okay? But always remember to take your cell phone with you. I'll keep it next to my bed. All right, the next one we have here is don't forget your pet. Prepare your pets for disasters. Your pets are important members of your family. This is why they should be included in your family's emergency plan. To prepare for an unexpected event, keep your pets in mind as you follow these tips. Make a plan for them, build an emergency kit for them, and stay informed with the information that the county and your local emergency managers give you. Make a plan, and if you have a plan in place for your pet, you will likely encounter less difficulty, less stress and worry when you need to make a decision during an emergency. Food, water, medicine, first aid kit potentially for your pet, collar, ID tags, a harness, a leash, travel bag, a crate, or a sturdy carrier. If you have to go to an evacuation center or a shelter, you have to have these things, a travel kit or sturdy carrier. Grooming items, sanitation needs. I love this one. A picture of you and your pet to show that, yes, that's my pet. Any documentation, especially if it's some sort of pedigreed, make sure you have all your papers. Okay.
Service animals.
And
too.
service animals too. Have all the documentation available. Familiar items, toys, treats for the dog or cat or the bird, to reduce the stress on your pet. You want to reduce the stress as much as you have here. This is your stuff.
Yes. So this is Suffolk Alert. So Suffolk Alert is Suffolk County's official emergency notification system. And we spoke, I think, a few times now about setting up a safety profile. So when you set up a safety profile with us, you can scan the QR code now, or you can, at the end, we have some pamphlets up here where you can scan it as well. And you create this safety profile. In that profile, you can customize the alerts and how you want to receive them. If you only want to get them by email, you can do so. If you only want to get them by text and voice, phone calls, you can also do that. You can sign up for specific alerts. So if you want from anytime they spray for the mosquitoes out here, you can do so. Office of the Aging has alerts on there. Veteran Services. Parks, first responders have alerts on there. EMS providers only have a category on there. You can set up and make those safety profiles. It's a smarter way for you to provide information to us and for us to provide information to you. And when I say for you to provide information to us, what we do in the Office of Emergency Management in these safety profiles is you fill out a number of questions. So say some of you might be bedbound at home. Maybe you don't have a car to evacuate. Maybe you rely on oxygen. You can put all of that information in that safety profile. Maybe you have a family member with autism, or you have someone who is hard of hearing. All of that can go in there, and it helps us in Office of Emergency Management in Suffolk County better prepare for these emergencies. So if we know that there's a vulnerable population in a specific storm surge zone, we can notify those local officials and we can help get those people out, get them to a zone of safety. So we can only do that if we have the information from the residents. So please take a moment, scan the QR code. We have it up here. We can assist you making a safety profile, and it helps us better serve you in the long run. We put some announcements where we do some of our trainings we put up out on there, and it's all that information stays in there. Only those who need to access the information, such as our office or our emergency dispatchers, can do so. And I know right now everything's in the midst of getting hacked and you don't know who has what information. I will tell you that during our cybersecurity incident, this information was untouched. Okay, so it's a nationwide program. It's all throughout the states. If you have kids going away to college, you can put their information in there. You can put a picture of them, their car, and God forbid something happens to them in another state. You can tell that dispatcher, I have a Smart 911 profile. This is what my child looks like, and they can get that information faster. It's helping them better serve you. So you can better, we can better serve you guys if you give us that information ahead of the time. And it's free, right? You put it on your devices. There's an app for it. You can get weather, traffic, all that stuff on there. Next slide. Some other considerations, right? If you see something, say something. Don't, if you observe any kind of suspicious activity, you can report it to that phone number, that 1-866 SAFE New York State. You can say what you observed, what did you see, why it was suspicious. Doug has some flyers up here. It's really, really important. If you see something, say something.
I'm going to give this to the town. This is for marine and maritime facility awareness. It's just, this really has nothing to do with hurricanes or tropical weather. This is more for just being secure in your neighborhood. The old term, if you see something, say something. This adds to that message, and we want to get that out to folks also. So I have this for the maritime and boating community for that.
All right, and then at the end of the day, right, how can, if you went, next slide, how can you help, right? So you guys can better help us by making those go kits and those go bags, staying better informed, but you can also volunteer with us. So we have a few programs here. Volunteers in the police service, we call them the VIPs. You can train to be an auxiliary police officer. We have our community emergency response team. That's a volunteer program I oversee. Our CERTs, as we call them, help augment the Office of Emergency Management in any type of disaster. So they'll come out for some of these presentations. They'll come in our emergency operations center. They're a great group of people. And lastly, we have the Medical Reserve Corps. So if you are an EMT, a doctor, a vet, you can sign up and volunteer those skills with the Medical Reserve Corps. They were a huge success during COVID. So a lot of our COVID vaccine pods were staffed by those volunteers. And I think in one day alone, we did about 3,000 shots. We had about 50 stations, and about half of those were volunteers. They helped out with medical consultant, EMTs, and nurses. A lot of them are pharmacists. So there are a lot of opportunities to volunteer. Next slide. And the most important one is your local fire and EMS, right? We have 109 fire departments in Suffolk County and about 27 EMS agencies. We also have a Suffolk County Urban Search and Rescue Team, which is comprised of some of these volunteer fire and EMS. So please, if you want volunteer, you can do something, give back. There's plenty of opportunities to do so in Suffolk County. Next slide.
Next slide. Knowledge is power. Being prepared can mean knowing what to do and when to do it. Being prepared can also mean knowing what not to do. Like I said before, when there's thunderstorms outside, don't go outside. So be prepared and stay informed before, during, and after an event. I want to add one thing before we close here. We go through emergencies, not as individuals, but as communities. Get to know your neighbors. Reach out to those before this happens, before a major event happens. Make contact with them. Say that you were here tonight, you were talking about preparedness. Try to work within a community function because we're going to go through it together. Some of the most interesting things that I saw as a utility person, we thought there was a protest going on a side street one time. And really what it was were these folks that they knew they were going to be without lights for at least 5 days. What they did was they took all their meat and all their supplies and they had a barbecue out in the street because they didn't want their meat to go bad. So what are they going to do? They knew that we were going through it as a community. So we shared that experience and we gained from that. So before, like I said, plan now so you can react later. I use this term, plan in peace, respond in chaos, because that's what's going to happen. But I need you to reach out to your neighbors and your friends to say, hey, we need to plan. We need to make sure that we're ready for something that comes. It may not be this year. It may not be next year. But according to the National Weather Service, we are due for something. We haven't had something directly impact us in a long time. Thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes, I think we're going to take some questions.
I'm an old woman and I worked very hard in the 90s and 2000. And I opened a shelter at the high school and I opened a shelter at the American Legion. A lot of things that you're talking about don't really work here. The American Legion took in about 130 people from that peak, which flooded over. Mm-hmm. And trying to get those people out of those houses took almost a day and a half. They didn't want to leave. So we have anxiety about leaving home until the flood waters come up to the door. Yeah. So that is an issue that I think it's very hard to address, yes, particularly with older people. Mm-hmm. So you do understand that 20% live here and the rest fly out. Like within an hour, they're gone. I know. The rest of us who are local are here and we go to the school or we go to the American Legion or whatever. There is a close-knit society here, but it's much smaller than it used to be. I'm sure you understand what's going on here, yes, right? So what we have is I was in charge of a situation where the telephones didn't work. Yeah. The telephones went down. The cops could not go between East Hampton and Southampton because there was water over the roads and we had no telephones. Now, I don't know if that's been fixed. In 20 years, I hope it has. But I'm not talking cell, I'm talking just regular phone service was gone. So we didn't know what was going on.
It's I'm glad that you said that, because that's a perfect example for a plan. The loss of communications. You want to react before the flooding happens. The best that we can do is to have people go on to the flood map that we showed to say, hey, I live in this area and I would be in a flood zone. I have to get out. When we make our notifications before an event occurs, we're going to tell people that this is the kind of water that you're looking at. We're going to give specific information to them to say this is a threat. The National Hurricane Center and our local forecasters use the term life-threatening flood. And they will use that, and we will too. There are other folks.
Service.
What?
We need phone service.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you have people here who don't want to leave.
Yeah.
They don't want to leave, and they will not do what you suggested. But we need to have telephone service so that we know. I had a heart attack. Excuse me, I didn't have a heart attack. One of the people I was taking care of had a heart attack at the American Legion, and we couldn't get him to the hospital because the roads were overflowed in Bridgehampton. So we need phone service. Has that been fixed out here?
I can say, right, so when it comes to those things, what have we fixed since then? So we have, I believe, the ability now to, we have this thing called race season areas, right? So we have the ability to tap into the radio towers and communicate beyond if we need to in those situations, right? So yes, it's very frustrating in the event that if the phone towers get out, how are you guys getting that information out there? But I do believe that we have progressed quite some time to get those capabilities and workarounds
So in 20 years, we have phone service, no matter what.
The
I
communication.
can't say no matter what, right? Because we don't know, we can't predict all the emergencies. But are we better prepared in 20 years? Absolutely. Do we have the means to get out there and fix things? Absolutely. And to Doug's point, we're preparing now for those situations alone. So we can prepare and stage assets out there so that you are not left alone. We know that you're out there and we will do everything we can to help and assist you in those emergencies.
All right, all I'm saying is
Yes.
roads were closed.
I understand.
We couldn't get out of town.
Yeah.
And then now Pete flooded.
Yes.
And we had emergencies that we had to just deal with in the moment because we could not get, the cops were standing around, wringing their hands all night.
Yes, but we have come some way from that time, and we can, like I said, we can get assets and resources out there to you if those situations occur again. We're better prepared, we're better informed, and we can assist those out there.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
No problem. Anything else? Any other questions?
One question. Yep.
Yeah, so one thing we hear from a lot of residents is, the further out east you are, the harder it is to get resources. Now, if we were to see a hurricane, actually a slow-moving hurricane hit Long Island and have mass effects across the East End, how can we kind of ensure that are we going to get resources early? Because as we're talking about, infrastructure may get cut off. You might not be able to get stuff out here for a few days. So is there planning in place that, hey, look, we see this coming, we're going to bring this to you early. We're going to augment your supplies, your security services, et cetera.
Yeah, so the great thing with hurricanes is that they don't happen, right, in, an hour, 2 hours. We have, like I mentioned earlier, this 120-hour timeline because we're sitting and we are watching as soon as it forms off the coast of Africa and it makes its way up to us. And as Doug mentioned, we're in constant communication with all of our partners. So yes, we have plans in place to pre-stage assets wherever we need to put them in the event of these emergencies.
We had Hurricane Henri a few years ago.
Yeah.
Hurricane Henri was going to give the eastern part of Long Island a life-threatening storm surge. Never happened. But we had assets ready to go at daylight to do urban search and rescue, helicopter flights. We had a whole cadre of people ready to respond. But thank goodness, Henri, at 3 o'clock in the morning, decided to take a right turn to the Atlantic Ocean, and off it went. We had that emergency operations center I showed you was fully stocked with people.
Yeah, we had FEMA in our parking
And we
lot.
had FEMA in the parking lot with their satellite communications, all of their stuff ready to roll. And then we had a nice breakfast and we went and we left.
So yes, to your point, we are constantly watching and monitoring. And as we see it progress, and Doug has mentioned, we went down to hurricane school, we have those relationships that we're building
If FEMA
now.
dies, you know, we're hearing now that FEMA may not exist next month. If FEMA doesn't exist, you're still there doing this stuff,
Yes,
right?
because it always starts locally. It starts locally. So the better you are prepared locally that's how it's going to help you through, right? It starts with you here. It starts with you learning from these preparedness presentations and being better prepared and better informed. And then it just goes up from there.
Just real quick, and then we're going to end this. In the Emergency Operations Center, we have people tasked not only to monitor things, but to react. So if they know that there is a communication outage, because we have links with all of the communication companies, and we know that if there's a loss in certain areas, if there's a power loss in a certain area, we then are able to amass forces to fix things and bring the forces together to react to those types of things, to recover from the incident. So it's not that we're just sitting there seeing things, we react and we coordinate with the town. Where do you need assistance first, second, and third? Okay, so we do that in the Emergency Operations Center.
So I think most importantly, just to summarize it all up, right? We have progressed in time and we are better prepared than we were once before. And we are constantly monitoring and watching. But as the commissioner just said, it's most important. If we give out those warnings, you need to listen and you need to act, right? So that's why we want you to stay informed as we go through this season, okay? All right, thank you so much for your time.
I want to thank Commissioner Rudy.
Don't unplug. Okay, never mind. It's all good. I'll just end the broadcast. Thank you very much, everyone.
Just so everybody knows, we're going to be posting the PowerPoint and a link to the YouTube tonight's presentation on the town website. And we'll be doing posts on social media to get the word out. We're grateful that you all showed up tonight, and we need to get our friends and neighbors, to be aware of this presentation as well. So thank you.
Thank you.